The stars shimmered silently in the vast expanse of space, but deep in the heart of the universe, something was stirring. For centuries, humans had gazed up at the night sky with wonder, unaware that their place in the cosmos was about to be shattered. No one expected this. Not the governments, not the soldiers, and certainly not the civilians. Earth had always been seen as a quiet, insignificant speck in the galaxy, just another planet in a vast, uncaring universe. The humans thought they had time. They thought they were safe. But in the cold, unfeeling depths of space, a force was about to prove them wrong. Far from Earth, on the alien warship Zarathar, the Vidian Empire's fleet assembled. Led by the ruthless warlord Zorthak, the aliens had conquered countless worlds. Yet they had never set their eyes on Earth. The humans, with their primitive technology and fragile civilization, seemed like easy prey. Zorthak's glowing emerald eyes flickered with confidence as he reviewed the data. "They are weak," he muttered to his commanders. "We will take Earth with ease." The Vidians, towering beings with sleek, reptilian skin, had destroyed entire star systems with their brutal conquests. They were experts at annihilating weaker species, and to them, humans were no different. The Earthlings' defenses were primitive, their technology outdated compared to the advanced weaponry the Vidians wielded. Zorthak's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Prepare for deployment. Earth will fall within hours." The fleet rumbled to life, ready to descend on the unsuspecting planet. As they slipped into the void of space, the first wave of ships prepared for atmospheric entry. In the control room, Zorthak's heart beat steadily with excitement. Soon, the humans would know the true meaning of power. On Earth, far below the stars, the world carried on with its mundane routines. People walked the streets, oblivious to the storm that was approaching. Governments ran their usual meetings, scientists made their latest discoveries, and children laughed and played in parks. Life was simple. Life was good, but beneath the surface, something was changing. In the military command center, Captain Cole Payne stared at a monitor, his mind heavy with years of combat experience. He had seen every kind of threat imaginable, rebels, terrorists, even biological warfare, but this felt different. A strange signal had been intercepted by Earth's defense systems, one that couldn't be ignored. The message was unlike anything humanity had encountered before, and his instincts were telling him to brace for impact. Before he could process the implications, his radio buzzed to life, cracking through the tension. "Captain Payne, we're picking up something big. Multiple unidentified vessels entering Earth's atmosphere." The message was clear. Earth was about to be invaded. As Zorthak's fleet approached Earth's atmosphere, he felt a surge of triumph. They were moments away from victory. The humans, in their ignorance, had never been prepared for such an assault. Their defense systems, which had been designed to protect against primitive threats, would be no match for the Vidian firepower, his fleet's ships. Sleek and terrifying, cut through the air with terrifying precision, their weapons primed for destruction. "We'll make quick work of this," Zorthak said, his voice steady and cold. "Humanity will fall, and we will reign over this pitiful planet." But just as the Vidians began their descent, a strange hum echoed through the atmosphere. Zorthak's eyes narrowed. "What is that sound?" he growled. Before anyone could respond, the sky above Earth began to crackle with energy. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the entire fleet. And then, as if in answer to the aliens' arrogance, Earth's defenses sprang to life. Massive energy blasts shot into the sky, lighting up the night with fiery trails. The humans had fought back. Zorthak watched in disbelief as human ships, though far less advanced, soared into space, firing lasers and missiles into the approaching fleet. The Earthlings were fighting back, not with the overwhelming force of the Vidian army, but with sheer, unyielding determination. "What is this?" Zorthak whispered, his hands gripping the armrests of his chair. "How are they so resourceful?" Captain Payne watched the sky as Earth's defense systems tore into the alien fleet, his heart pounding in his chest. He had expected the usual threats, but nothing prepared him for the sheer scale of the incoming invasion. The sound of alarms blared throughout the military base as soldiers scrambled to prepare for combat. "Everyone, to your stations!" he shouted, his voice carrying through the chaos. "This is not a drill!" He turned to his squad, his face hardening with determination. "Stay sharp. We're about to show these aliens what Earth is made of." The moment the alien ships began to land, the ground shook with the force of their impact. The invaders, with their advanced weapons and superior technology, seemed like an unstoppable force. But what they didn't know was that humanity had something far more dangerous than technology: the will to survive. As the Vidians began their assault, the battle for Earth began. The aliens, expecting an easy victory, were unprepared for the fight that lay ahead. Human soldiers fought with everything they had: guns, grenades, their fists. They fought for their families, for their homes, and most importantly, for their future. Captain Payne stood in the heart of the battlefield, watching as his comrades pushed forward, defying the overwhelming odds. The aliens, for all their might, couldn't break the human spirit. The fight had only just begun, but already the invaders were starting to realize something. Humans are not to be underestimated. Zorthak's fleet faltered. His forces were being pushed back. The humans had proved more resilient than he had anticipated. The warlord clenched his fists. "This is impossible!" he roared. "Why won't they break? Why do they fight so fiercely?" The answer was simple. They fight because they must. And in the face of this unexpected war, the humans had found their strength. The first shots had been fired, and Earth would never be the same again. The air was thick with the smell of burning fuel as the first wave of alien ships plunged through Earth's atmosphere. They were sleek, monstrous, and terrifying, metal behemoths that cast long shadows across the planet's surface. Their landing shook the ground with the force of 1,000 earthquakes, sending vibrations through the very bones of the Earth itself. But the humans were already ready. On the outskirts of a small, seemingly insignificant city, Captain Colpayne watched from a high perch as the sky darkened with the incoming alien ships. His eyes narrowed, the familiar weight of his combat gear grounding him in the reality of what was unfolding. He had seen chaos before, wars that raged across foreign lands, the destruction of cities in mere hours. But this was different. This wasn't a fight for territory or power or resources. This was an invasion, a war for survival. His fingers tightened around the trigger of his rifle, his pulse steady despite the pounding chaos of war around him. The Vidians were coming, alien soldiers with weapons that could erase entire battalions in seconds. But humans, they weren't just soldiers. They were survivors. And in a moment like this, survival meant everything. The first alien foot soldiers, towering figures with their sharp, reptilian features and glowing eyes, stepped out of their ships, their boots clicking on the scorched earth as they surveyed their surroundings. They were confident, striding through the wreckage of their landing zones as though they had already won. To them, Earth was an easy conquest, a planet ripe for the taking. The humans were nothing more than ants to be crushed underfoot. At least, that's what they thought. From the moment the aliens stepped foot on Earth, they were met not with fear or surrender, but with a sharp, defiant roar. The humans, their backs pressed against their homes, their families, fought not just for survival, but for pride. The very thing that the aliens hadn't accounted for, the human spirit, was what began to burn in the hearts of every soldier. Every civilian who could wield a weapon, Cole and his team, positioned in a nearby building, exchanged quick glances. The first wave of aliens was already moving into the streets, advancing with precision and discipline. There was no time to waste. "Get ready," Cole muttered under his breath. "And remember, they're not here for peace. They're here to wipe us out." He gave a hand signal, and the team moved quickly, splitting into groups to cover multiple exits. They had no heavy artillery, no advanced alien technology, but they had something the aliens didn't expect: strategy. As the alien forces advanced, the humans launched their first strike. From hidden positions, soldiers fired, their bullets whizzing through the air. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get the aliens' attention. The Vidians turned, their weapons flashing, firing back with deadly precision. Yet for every alien soldier that fell, another took their place. The humans were outgunned, but they were relentless. The streets that had once been peaceful were now battlegrounds, with explosions echoing through the air, turning the city into a war zone. Meanwhile, Zorthak, the leader of the Vidian forces, watched the unfolding chaos from the command center aboard his flagship. His eyes flickered with a mix of surprise and annoyance. His forces were supposed to dominate these puny humans. Instead, they were being forced to fight, to struggle. This was not the swift victory he had anticipated. Why aren't they surrendering? Zorthak growled, his fist pounding against the armrest. This is supposed to be easy. His top lieutenant, a hulking Vidian soldier with crimson scales, turned to him. They are resilient, my lord. They are not like the others we have conquered. Zorthak's sharp eyes studied the footage. No matter. We have the advantage. We will crush them under our boot heel. But even as he said the words, doubt crept into his mind. Something about the way the humans fought made him uneasy. They were unpredictable, unconventional, and that made them dangerous. Back on the ground, Cole's squad continued to fight. They were making their way through the ruins of a once thriving neighborhood, dodging alien fire and moving with the quick, calculated precision of seasoned warriors. They were vastly outnumbered, but every step they took, every shot they fired, counted. Cole's team leader, Sergeant Avery, took position behind a burnout vehicle. Captain, we need to move fast. We've got a chance to cut off their rear flank, but we'll need to take out their communication tower first. Cole nodded. Get to the tower. I'll cover you. As the team moved out, Cole's eyes darted around the street, constantly scanning for movement. He could hear the distant roars of alien fire, the cries of battle filling the air. But in the chaos, something else caught his attention. A group of civilians trapped in a collapsed building were signaling for help. Without hesitation, Cole motioned to his team. We've got hostages. We're going in. The clock was ticking, and the human resistance was already beginning to show its claws. Every building, every street corner became a fortress, a last line of defense. The alien forces, once so confident, now found themselves in a battle they hadn't planned for. A battle for humanity's survival. Cole and his team fought through the night, inch by inch as alien ships rained destruction from above. Yet despite the odds, humanity was holding its ground. Every alien that fell was replaced by another. But with each fallen soldier, the humans' resolve grew stronger. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Zorthak's forces had only gained a small portion of the city. The alien leader stood at the helm of his command center, watching his forces struggle to maintain their position. For the first time in a long time, he felt something unfamiliar: frustration. He turned to his lieutenant. These humans are more than we bargained for, but we will not lose. Not now. Zorthak was right. His forces would not lose. But the humans? They weren't ready to give up. And as the first alien ships fell from the sky, the real war had only just begun. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting a soft golden glow across the battlefield. The first light of day highlighted the stark contrast between the alien invaders and their human opponents. The Vidians stood tall, their sleek and powerful forms seemingly unshaken by the chaos of the previous day. But their faces betrayed an unfamiliar feeling: doubt. On the other hand, the humans, battered and bruised, stood together as one, united by something stronger than any weapon or technology. It wasn't their guns, or their bombs, or their planes that had kept them standing through the night. It was their spirit, an unyielding, relentless will that had been forged over centuries of struggle and survival. Something the Vidians could never have understood. In the heart of the city, amid the rubble and smoke of the previous night's battle, Captain Cole Payne surveyed the damage. The air was thick with the scent of scorched metal and burning debris, and the distant hum of alien ships reminded him that the fight was far from over. But as he looked around at his fellow soldiers, bloodied, weary, but resolute, he knew something that Zorthak, the alien leader, would soon learn. Humanity didn't fight because they had to. They fought because they wanted to. He turned to his squad, who were gathering what little supplies they had left. "We're not backing down," Cole said, his voice calm but firm. "We push forward, and we show them what humans are made of. Not just warriors, but survivors." Sergeant Avery, his trusted second-in-command, nodded. "Ain't no retreating in us, Captain. We're gonna give them a reason to regret picking a fight with Earth." Meanwhile, Zorthak stood aboard his flagship, watching the footage of the humans' resilience with a growing sense of unease. His fleet had not advanced as smoothly as he had anticipated. The humans were disorganized, with no unified leadership to speak of, yet they had held their ground in a way that felt deliberate. "These creatures," Zorthak muttered, his voice low with frustration. "How are they still fighting?" "They should have broken by now." His lieutenant, the hulking Vidian soldier with crimson scales, approached him. "My lord, perhaps we underestimated them. Their tactics are unconventional. They don't fight like the other species we've conquered." Zorthak's sharp eyes glinted with growing suspicion. "No, this isn't just survival. This is defiance. This is something different." He turned to his lieutenant, his claws tapping restlessly against the command console. "Prepare the second wave. We will crush them quickly. Their resolve won't last much longer." Back on the ground, the humans were far from broken. Their unity was their greatest weapon. As the alien forces pushed forward, humanity responded with ingenuity. They didn't have the advanced technology the Vidians possessed, but they had adaptability, the ability to make do with what they had and turn any situation into an advantage. Cole and his team moved swiftly through the streets, using the city's infrastructure to their advantage. They knew every alley, every rooftop, and every hidden passage. The Vidians, with all their advanced technology, were trapped in the city's labyrinthine streets, while the humans moved like shadows in the night, always one step ahead. "We know our city better than they know their own ships," Cole said, leading his squad through an abandoned building. "Every corner is a potential advantage, and every person here is a fighter. We'll make them pay for every inch they try to take." As the battle raged on, the human resistance grew stronger. Civilians who had once been cowering in fear now took up arms. Engineers and mechanics turned their workshops into makeshift weapon factories. Farmers and school teachers joined the ranks, fighting side by side with soldiers. Everyone had a role to play in this fight for survival. It was a unified front, humanity as a whole, standing together against a force that had expected easy victory. One such civilian, a former school teacher named Elena, had joined the fight after her town was attacked. She was no soldier, but her mind was sharp, and her ability to think on her feet quickly had saved many lives. She had become an unofficial strategist for the resistance, helping to coordinate attacks and devise traps for the aliens. In a small command center, Elena looked at the map of the city, her finger tracing the enemy's movements. "They're pushing into the north sector," she said, her voice steady. "But if we cut off their supply route through the east, they'll be stranded." Cole glanced at the map and nodded. "You're right. We hit them from both sides and force them into a trap. They won't know what hit them. It wasn't just about fighting. It was about using every resource available, brains, courage, and determination. That was humanity's true strength." As the days wore on, the battle for Earth intensified. The Vidians began to notice the shift. The humans were no longer just a nuisance to be dealt with. They were becoming a problem, a major problem. Every time the aliens thought they had gained ground, the humans found a way to fight back. Zorthak, growing more frustrated with every passing hour, watched his forces struggle. His soldiers, once invincible in their advanced technology, were now bogged down by guerrilla tactics and human resilience. It was becoming clear that these humans were not the weaklings he had believed them to be. "Why are they fighting this hard?" Zorthak snarled. "What makes them so—" His lieutenant interrupted. "They fight for their homes, my lord. For their families, for their survival. That is a power stronger than any weapon." Zorthak stared out at the war unfolding below. He realized, too late, that he had underestimated the very thing that made humans dangerous, the will to survive. As the sun set on another day of battle, Cole stood at the edge of the city watching as the last remnants of the alien forces retreated. The humans had held their ground once again, but there was still more to be done. The war was far from over. "We've got a long way to go," Cole said to his team, his voice low but determined. "But this is just the beginning. The Vidians may have technology, but we have something stronger, our will to fight, to survive. And that's something they'll never understand." The battle raged on, but one thing was clear. Humanity had found its strength, and the Vidians would soon learn that they had made a grave mistake underestimating the human spirit. The night was still, the kind of quiet that felt too heavy, like a storm waiting to break. On the outskirts of what remained of the city, the air was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning metal. The sounds of battle were far away now, but Colpane knew the fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. The Vidians had learned that the hard way, but what they didn't know yet was just how dangerous the humans could be when they were pushed too far. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the remains of the city, Cole and his squad gathered in a small makeshift command center. Maps were sprawled out across the table, lit by the flickering glow of old, battered lamps. The squad was tired, covered in dirt and blood, but their eyes were sharp. They weren't just soldiers anymore. They were the last line of defense for their planet. "Report," Cole barked, his voice cutting through the heavy silence. A young soldier, Private Daniels, spoke up, his voice steady despite the fear behind his eyes. "The Vidians have pushed into the city's northern sector. We've got to cut them off before they get any further. They've got heavy artillery, but we have one advantage: our terrain." "We know the city better than they do," Cole nodded. This wasn't just about fighting. This was about strategy, about using their environment to their advantage. And that's when it hit him. The thing that had been nagging at him. The thing he had overlooked until now. Humans weren't just fighting with their weapons and tactics. They had something the aliens didn't. They had ingenuity. "All right," Cole said, his voice sharper now. "We hit them where it hurts. I've got a plan, but it's going to require every ounce of human ingenuity we've got left. We'll turn their own strength against them." Meanwhile, aboard the Vidian flagship Zarathar, Zorthak paced restlessly in his command center. His mind was clouded with frustration. The humans had proven unexpectedly resilient, adapting quickly, fighting with a ferocity that had surprised him. They were like cornered animals, and cornered animals were the most dangerous. How are they still holding their ground? Zorthak snarled, his sharp claws tapping on the control panel. This should be over by now. His lieutenant, the hulking Vidian soldier, stood at attention. "They've turned the city's underground network to their advantage, my lord. They've laid traps in every alleyway. We've lost a third of our ground troops in the past 24 hours. Zorthak's eyes narrowed. "These humans, they're not like the others we've conquered. They're unpredictable, and that makes them dangerous." He paused, glancing at the reports on the screen in front of him. "We need to strike back with everything we have. We'll crush their resistance before they can organize another counterattack." But Zorthak didn't realize it yet. The humans were already organizing. Back on Earth, Cole and his squad moved quickly through the crumbling streets. They had a plan, but it wasn't a traditional military strike. No, this was something different. They weren't just going to fight the Vidians head-on. They were going to make them pay for every inch they took. Cole had studied the alien forces long enough to know their weaknesses, and now he intended to exploit them. "Set up here," Cole ordered, gesturing to a dilapidated building. "We've got one shot at this." "Daniels, I need you to get to the high ground. The rest of you, set the charges at key points around the sector. We're going to make them regret coming to Earth." Daniels, looking apprehensive but determined, nodded and took position on the roof. The rest of the team spread out, placing traps and explosives at strategic points, ensuring that the Vidians would be funneled into a kill zone. Cole stood quietly for a moment, watching his squad work. They weren't just soldiers anymore. They were the last hope for their planet. They were more than just humans with weapons. They were the very embodiment of defiance. The Vidians, advancing cautiously through the northern sector, had no idea what was coming. They had assumed they would wipe out the remaining resistance in a few hours, but the humans were fighting smarter, not harder. As they moved deeper into the city, Zorthak's forces found themselves increasingly trapped. Unable to advance without taking heavy losses, then, just as the aliens thought they had gained the upper hand, Cole gave the signal. The ground beneath the Vidian troops erupted in a series of explosions, sending shockwaves through the streets. Fireballs lit up the sky, and the once quiet night was torn apart by the sound of destruction. The aliens were caught off guard, thrown into chaos as the humans launched their counteroffensive. Daniels, perched high on the rooftop, fired down on the disoriented Vidian soldiers, picking them off one by one. The aliens, disoriented and struggling to regroup, were caught in a deadly game of cat and mouse. The humans were outnumbered, but they had one thing the Vidians didn't: the element of surprise. Zorthak, watching from his ship, saw the chaos unfold on his monitors. His jaw tightened with rage. The humans had turned his own soldiers' confusion into their advantage. They had done something the Vidians had never expected. They had used their environment, their cunning, and their unpredictability to become a force to be reckoned with. Send in reinforcements. Zorthak barked, slamming his fist down on the console. We will not lose to these pathetic creatures. But even as he shouted his orders, the tide was already turning. The humans had proven that they were more than just survivors. They were fighters. And as the Vidians stumbled through the smoke-filled streets, trying desperately to regain control, they realized too late that the humans had already turned the war in their favor. As the battle raged on, Cole and his team didn't stop. Every explosion, every trap set, every strategic move was a reminder to the Vidians that humanity wasn't to be underestimated. The humans may not have had the advanced technology or the overwhelming firepower, but they had something far more dangerous: the will to fight and the ability to adapt. Cole stood among his team, the city around them in ruins. But in that moment, as the dust began to settle, he knew one thing for sure: this fight was far from over, and humanity wasn't going down without making the Vidians pay for every inch they took. They weren't just defending Earth, they were taking it back. The war had only just begun, but for the first time, the aliens could feel it. The humans had something they would never have: the heart of a warrior. The battle had turned into something neither side had anticipated. The night had fallen over the war-torn city, and beneath the darkened sky a new kind of struggle was unfolding. The Vidians, for all their advanced technology and strength, were beginning to understand the one thing they had underestimated. Humans would never surrender, not when their very existence was at stake. Captain Cole Payne crouched behind a wrecked vehicle, his eyes scanning the streets, always alert. The chaos of the past few days had been brutal, but in the midst of it all, he had seen something remarkable. It wasn't just the weapons, the tactics, or the strategy that kept the humans fighting. It was the sense of unity, the belief that together, they could outsmart an enemy that was far superior in power. The Vidians were now boxed in, trapped within the city's defenses. They had been relentless, pushing through the streets, but as Cole looked over the battlefield, it was clear. They had made one critical mistake. They had underestimated the resilience of Earth's people. Daniels, Cole whispered into his comms, "Do you have a clear shot?" From his elevated position, Daniels responded, "Clear shot, Captain. Just waiting on your signal." Cole's gaze never wavered from the alien forces that were closing in. The Vidians had set up camp near the outskirts of the city, thinking they could fortify their position and launch an overwhelming counterattack. But they hadn't counted on one thing: the humans had already infiltrated their rear defenses. The trap was set. On the Vidian flagship Zarathar, Zorthak paced angrily in his command center. His forces had been pushed back, his soldiers stretched thin, and his confidence shattered. The humans, despite their lack of advanced weaponry, had adapted in ways the Vidians couldn't fathom. What had started as a calculated invasion had turned into a grueling fight for survival. "How have they come this far?" Zorthak muttered, his claws tapping impatiently on the metal surface of the command console. "They should have crumbled by now. This resistance, it's not just strategy, it's something more." His lieutenant stood beside him, looking grim. "They fight with something we can't understand, my lord. Something primal. They don't just fight to win. They fight to survive. And that's what makes them so dangerous." Zorthak's lip curled in frustration. "We will crush them. We must show them the price of defiance." But as the Vidian forces began to regroup, something unexpected happened. The ground beneath them began to tremble. Back on Earth, Cole gave the signal. "Now," he whispered. The air erupted as explosive charges, planted by human engineers days earlier, detonated all at once. The shockwave rippled through the streets, rocking the Vidian lines and sending their soldiers tumbling. Buildings once thought to be crumbling ruins suddenly sprang to life, revealing hidden defenses, anti-aircraft guns, reinforced barricades, and hidden turrets designed for moments like this. "Boom," Daniels muttered, his voice tinged with satisfaction. "Let's see how they handle that." The Vidian soldiers, disoriented and caught off guard by the explosive counterattack, scrambled for cover, but the humans had already moved into position. Cole's team, along with the rest of the human resistance, closed in from all sides. They weren't just reacting to the Vidians anymore, they were leading the charge. The aliens tried to regroup, but the humans had them exactly where they wanted them. Their own arrogance had set the trap. They had advanced too far without anticipating just how quickly the humans could adapt, how swiftly they could turn the tide of battle. Zorthak watched the chaos unfold on his screens, his heart sinking as his forces were overwhelmed. The humans had executed their plan flawlessly. What had once seemed like a victory for the Vidians had turned into a desperate struggle for survival. Zorthak's claws dug into the armrests of his chair as he watched his troops retreat, unable to handle the unexpected force of human ingenuity. How could this happen? Zorthak growled. "They're supposed to be weak." His lieutenant, still at attention, offered a grim reply. "It seems, my lord, that we've made the same mistake twice. We didn't respect them. These humans," he paused, searching for the right words. "They have the heart of warriors. And that heart, it's stronger than anything we've seen before." Back on the ground, Cole led his team forward, moving swiftly through the wreckage. The human resistance was pushing the Vidians back, reclaiming the streets and fighting for every inch of their planet. There was no turning back now. Cole's eyes narrowed as he saw a group of Vidian soldiers trying to escape. They were running, fleeing to their ships, desperate to leave the battle and regroup. But it was too late. The trap had already closed, and the humans were closing in for the final strike. "We finish this," Cole said, his voice cold with determination. "We push them back, we take their ships, and we show them why Earth is not to be underestimated." He motioned to his squad. "Move out!" As the last remnants of the Vidian forces were scattered, Zorthak's ship hovered above the city, watching the humans claim victory. The Vidians had been forced into retreat, their once feared invasion reduced to a failure. Zorthak's mind raced. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He had underestimated them, and now humanity stood victorious, pushing the alien invaders off their world. Earth wasn't just surviving anymore, it was fighting back. The humans had done what no one thought was possible. They had taken the fight to the Vidians, using every ounce of creativity, bravery, and ingenuity they had. And now, the Vidians would have to reckon with the cost of their mistake. Cole stood amidst the wreckage, looking out over the ruined city, his eyes steady. "This is just the beginning," he said to himself. "We'll rebuild. We'll adapt. We'll fight." And as the sun set on Earth, casting long shadows over the battlefield, the humans knew one thing for sure. They were far from finished. The night had fallen silent, but the tension in the air was thick. For the first time since the battle began, the alien forces were retreating. But even in retreat, they were dangerous. The streets of the city were littered with wreckage, the remnants of what had once been a thriving urban landscape, now serving as the backdrop for an alien invasion that was beginning to fail. Yet despite the growing number of Vidian casualties, Zorthak refused to admit defeat. The humans had fought hard, but Zorthak still had a weapon no human could defeat: fear. The Vidian leader stood on the bridge of the Zarathar, his eyes scanning the battle map before him. His mind churned with thoughts of strategy, but beneath the surface, a darker realization was creeping in. They had made a critical mistake. The Vidians had underestimated Earth. "We have to make a stand," Zorthak said, his voice deep and filled with an icy resolve. "If we don't stop them now, they'll break through our defenses entirely. Our only option is to crush their will once and for all." His lieutenant, standing at attention, looked at him warily. "But my lord, their resistance is growing stronger. Our forces are thinning, and we've already lost key positions. If we keep pushing forward, we risk total annihilation." Zorthak's eyes burned with a mixture of fury and determination. "I don't care about annihilation. We will show them that the Vidians will not be broken. We will push forward and destroy their resistance." If the humans think they can challenge us, they are gravely mistaken. On the ground, Cole and his team knew they had won a significant victory, but the war was far from over. The Vidians may have been retreating, but there was still one last obstacle standing in their way. The alien forces had regrouped in the southern sector, where they had taken shelter in an underground fortress. The humans had the momentum, but the final push would not be easy. Cole stood at the edge of the city, looking out at the distant, towering structure where the Vidians had made their last stand. It was heavily fortified, and the thought of taking it head-on seemed impossible. Yet if they didn't act now, the Vidians would regroup and return stronger than before. "We can't waste time," Cole said to his squad, his voice cold and commanding. "We take that fortress before they have time to regroup. We hit them hard and fast." "This is the final push," Sergeant Avery nodded, tightening his grip on his weapon. "Let's finish this, Captain. It's now or never." Cole looked at the faces of his team, tired, bruised, but determined. They had been through hell together, and they weren't going to let it end with a retreat. They would go down fighting, but not before they ensured the Vidians knew that humanity was not to be conquered. In the underground fortress, the remaining Vidian forces were preparing for the final assault. Zorthak had called for reinforcements, but it was clear that their numbers were dwindling. The humans had proven far more resilient than he had anticipated. But even in their desperation, the Vidians held their pride. The fortress was a symbol of their strength, and Zorthak would rather die defending it than surrender. The countdown to the final assault began, and Zorthak stood in front of his officers. "We will not lose this battle," he declared, his voice full of venom. "We will destroy them, or we will die trying. Prepare the final wave of defense. Let them know the cost of challenging the Vidian Empire." His officers saluted, knowing that they were facing their greatest challenge yet. The final showdown between the humans and the Vidians was coming, and both sides knew there could be only one victor. Back on the human side, Cole and his squad advanced through the city's outskirts, preparing to breach the fortress. The sound of their footsteps echoed through the empty streets, a reminder that every inch they gained came at the cost of bloodshed. As they approached the fortress, Cole could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was it, the final confrontation. They reached the walls of the Vidian stronghold, the towering structure looming over them like a dark monolith. The fortress was heavily guarded, and the Vidians knew they were coming. But the humans had one thing the aliens didn't: adaptability. "Daniels," Cole said into his comms, "take the high ground. Avery, you're with me. The rest of you, take the flanks. We hit them from all sides." As they prepared to breach the gates, Cole felt the air shift. The Vidians were ready. This was the moment where it all came down to whether the humans could break their final line of defense. Inside the fortress, the Vidian soldiers prepared for the human assault. The ground trembled as explosions rocked the walls, but Zorthak stood firm, his eyes focused. "This is the final battle," he said to his troops. "We fight with everything we have, and we do not show mercy." But even as he spoke, doubt lingered in his mind. Could the Vidians truly win this? Would their advanced technology be enough to stop the humans, who had shown time and again that they would never back down? The human forces broke through the gates of the fortress, their assault swift and brutal. The Vidians fought back fiercely, but the humans were relentless. Every room they cleared, every hallway they traversed, brought them closer to the heart of the Vidian stronghold. Cole's team moved with precision, cutting down alien soldiers with calculated efficiency. Every corner held danger, but their confidence was unwavering. The Vidians had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to learn from their mistakes and turn the tide of battle. Now, the aliens were paying the price. Zorthak's grip on his weapon tightened as he saw the humans advancing through the corridors of his fortress. His heart raced with a mixture of fury and disbelief. "We cannot lose," he muttered under his breath. "We will not lose." But as the humans pushed forward, Zorthak realized that the war was slipping from his grasp. The tide had turned, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The final moments of the battle were upon them. Cole stood at the heart of the fortress, facing down Zorthak himself. The Vidian leader's face was a mask of rage and frustration. his alien eyes burning with intensity. "You think you've won," Zorthak spat, "but this is far from over. The Vidian Empire will never fall." Cole's eyes narrowed, and he stepped forward, his voice calm but filled with conviction. "It's over, Zorthak. Your empire is finished, and humanity will keep fighting. We'll always keep fighting." With that, the final blow was struck. The Vidians had lost, but the humans had gained something far more important than victory. They had shown that no force, no matter how powerful, could crush the will to survive. The smoke had begun to clear, but the battle was far from over. Amidst the crumbling ruins of the Vidian fortress, the sun's early rays struggled to pierce the dense clouds of dust that still hung in the air. The ground beneath was scarred, a grim testament to the ferocity of the fight. But the humans, though battered, were standing victorious. Captain Cole Payne surveyed the wreckage, his eyes scanning the battlefield where the last remnants of the Vidian forces were either retreating or surrendering. The war had seemed impossible just days before, a battle against an enemy with advanced technology and ruthless determination. But now, as he stood amidst the destruction, Cole realized the truth of what had just transpired. The humans hadn't just survived, they had won. Behind him, the last of his squad regrouped, their faces tired but filled with a quiet pride. They had fought together through impossible odds, and now the fight was over. The Vidian forces, their advanced weapons and towering ships, were retreating, their empire shattered by the resilience and unrelenting will of the humans. "Captain," Sergeant Avery called from behind him, his voice breaking the silence. "We've done it. It's over." Cole turned to face him, his mind still processing the weight of their victory. "Not yet," he replied, his voice low and steady. "We've won the battle, but there's still more to be done. We need to make sure this victory means something. We need to make sure the Vidians know this wasn't just a lucky shot." In the heart of the battlefield, Zorthak stood among the ruins of his once mighty fortress, his face a mask of disbelief. The Vidian leader had never considered the possibility of defeat. His empire had crushed civilizations across 3 star systems. But here, in the heart of Earth, he had met his match. The humans had turned his overconfidence against him. What began as a swift conquest had turned into a brutal, grinding war that they couldn't win. Zorthak's forces were scattered, his technology and strength useless against the sheer determination of the humans. They had outsmarted him at every turn, and now his empire was on the brink of collapse. How could this happen? Zorthak growled to himself, his claws clenching in frustration. He had never known defeat, never thought he would. The humans had shown him that no matter how powerful you were, you could always be brought low. As Cole and his team moved deeper into the ruins, they came across the wreckage of what had once been the command center of the fortress. The walls were charred and broken, the air heavy with the scent of burned metal. But amidst the devastation, there was something else. The survivors, the Vidian soldiers who had once believed their victory was assured, were surrendering. Their weapons were down, their faces filled with defeat. Cole's hand rested lightly on his sidearm as he looked at the fallen aliens. But as he stood there, watching the survivors, something inside him stirred. He had seen war before, had felt the weight of loss, but this was different. This was an enemy that had underestimated humanity at every turn, but it wasn't just their weapons that had been defeated. It was their arrogance. "We did it," Avery said quietly, stepping up beside him. "We won! We really won!" Cole didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned his gaze to the horizon, where the sun was just beginning to break through the clouds. The battle for Earth had been long and the cost had been high, but in that moment, Cole knew one thing for sure. Humanity had proven itself. Against all odds, against an enemy that had dismissed them as insignificant, they had fought back, and they had won. Meanwhile, aboard the Zarathar, Zorthak's remaining officers had gathered in the command center, unsure of what to do next. Their leader, once a figure of unshakable strength, was now a broken shell of the Vidian Empire's might. "We must retreat, my lord," one of the officers said, his voice trembling with uncertainty. "We can regroup, rebuild. The Empire is not beyond saving." But Zorthak's gaze was cold, distant. He had already made his decision. "No," he replied flatly. "We are not retreating. This war is over. The humans have shown us that we are not invincible. We will leave this planet, but I will make sure they understand that the Vidian Empire does not forget." The message from Zorthak came swiftly, transmitted across the vast reaches of space, a final defiant proclamation from a broken empire. The humans, with all their ingenuity and tenacity, had turned the tide. But as the message echoed through the cosmos, the humans stood resolute. They had seen the worst of what the universe had to offer, and now they had shown it what humanity was capable of. Cole and his team stood in the midst of the shattered remains of the Vidian fortress, the weight of the victory settling over them. They had done the impossible. And as the distant sound of alien ships retreating echoed in the air, Cole took a deep breath. "It's over," he said quietly. "But we're not done yet. We have a message to send." He turned to face his squad, his voice carrying with new conviction. "We may have won this battle, but it's not just about fighting. It's about making sure the rest of the galaxy knows one thing. Humanity fights for its survival, and we never, ever back down." As the survivors of the Vidian invasion retreated into the shadows, their empire crumbling behind them, Cole and his team knew the message had been heard. The aliens had underestimated humanity, and that was the greatest mistake they had ever made. The sun rose fully above the horizon now, casting golden light across the battlefield. The human survivors, though weary and scarred, stood proud. They had not just survived, they had prevailed. And in that moment, as Cole looked at the faces of his fellow soldiers, he knew that Earth was no longer just a small, fragile planet in the universe. It was a force to be reckoned with.